The representation of the Ottoman port in the Chronicle of European Sarmatia is determined by the Chronicle's ambitions to construct a diachronic account of the relations between the Polish crown, the Grand Duchy of Lithuania, and the states united under the Jagiellonian dynasty on the hand and empire of the sultans on the order. This portrayal is composed predominantly of relatively brief fragments that highlight key moments in the complex web of multilateral relations. The perspective from which history is narrated varies from book to book. Thus we encounter the viewpoint of the Crown, Book 1, that the Lithuania, Book 7, and not 7, 2, Book 2, as well as the border frontier zone comprising Moldavia, Wallachia, and Hungary. In addition, there is a depiction of the Ottoman port itself, with particular emphasis on the northern and eastern coasts of the Mediterranean. Book 10. References to Ottoman history must therefore be read in light of the Chronicle's overarching perspective, which encompasses the realm of Jagiellonian rule in Central Europe, the Polish crown, the Grand Duchy of Lithuania, the Kingdom of Bohemia, and the Kingdom of Hungary, collectively forming what may be termed the Jagiellonian community. Within the framework, several distinct perspectives can be the standard, each contributing to the construction of the image of the Ottoman port. Historical, it's a chronica, historical of diachronic perspective foregrounds specific events situated both within the sphere of international relations and within the domain of bilateral contacts. The political perspective, I don't characterize this sphere, we haven't a time for it. The geographical perspective, the economic perspective is revelated in information about merchant trade travel. The military perspective, the religious perspective meets the with military perspective, the cultural customary perspective. It's a very long characteristic. Next. I show only these elements. I prepare this presentation. Don't read these elements you see quick, and you will know what its idea in this in the chronicle, in the chronic. The political diplomatic perspective. No, for instance, this Peter Zborowski, Andrzej Taranowski is a very important person in this in the chronic, but it's no natural phenomena. Particular emphasis in the placed to travel rivers, of course, mountains, desert area, and so on. The economic perspective in this perspective, is important to visiting and present merchants slaver. It's and military perspective, and prisoners and so on. The religious perspective is very built elements of the chronic, because it's a chance to present this Muslim for Commonwealth mieszkańcy. In colas in Latin. And in works preceding the Chronicle, partly based on the travel accounts. Next. This is important. The sources of knowledge. Where is it? I don't know. Sorry. Guagnini and Paszkowski present knowledge of the Ottoman port scattered across several books, articulated in a synthetic form, and despite the fragmentary structure of the account, ultimately comprehensive. Compilation employed here as a create method ensembles the authors to ensemble the most essential information from the areas under consideration. The sources of knowledge for Guagnini and Paszkowski, who make use on this compilatory method, consist of travelers' accounts as well as other chronicles, supplemented by additional literature. Particularly are Marcin Bielski, Kronika Wszego Świata, Kronika Polska Joachima Bielskiego, Peregrynacja, bo pielgrzymowanie Radziwiłła, Sierotki, Bartłomieja Georgiewicza, Rozmowa albo pielgrzymowanie, and to reinforce their argumentation and to lend greater rhetorical color to the exposition, they also draw upon quotations from Ovid, Krzysztof Warszawicki, Wenecyja, Mikołaj Rej, Przedmowa krótka, and Maciej Stryjkowski o wolności korony polskiej. With regard to the handling of sources, the description of Andrzej Taranowski journey, it's first part of the sources. Andrzej Taranowski included in book 1 in the section devoted to the region of Sigismund Augustus appears particularly noteworthy. Guagnini recounts the diplomatic mission of 1569 to Istanbul, beginning with a fragment identical the presentation of the enjoy found in Bartosz Paprocki, Herby Rycerstwa Polskiego, the imitate source of the account. However, in Joachim Bielski is this slide. Joachim Bielski, Kronika Polska, from which Guagnini draws the description of embassy, beginning with the Port Royal of the Imperial Gardens. In his effort toward concision, Guagnini omits the description of the Sarnapa giraffe, He also produced, following Bielski, the letter of Sigismund Augustus to Sultan Selim. Co tu jest dalej? And so on. In works preceding the Chronicle, partly based on travel accounts and information provided by a witness of various events, such as wars. The dominant motives of Ottoman description were established and consolidated. Those motives become embedded in the consciousness of readers and gained broader circulation without the chronicles Marcin and Joachim Bielski, as well as that of Alexander Guagnini. In subsequent accounts they appear already fully constituted. By contrast, in works published after those chronic, offering portrayals limited to particular fragments of reality, specific times, places or events, the same motives return with the greater force, elaborated and enriched in their expression. I shall discuss several examples of already established motives, drawing upon Samuel Twardowski, Przeważna alegacja, Wacław Potocki, Transakcja wojny chocimskiej, Completed between, not important, as well as the occasional literature of the 17th century, explained here by Szymon Starowolski, wyprawa i wyjazd potężnego i nieogarnionego wojska. The 18th century Eastern will be represented by Stanisław Chomentowski, Poselstwo Wielkie, described by the Jesuit Franciszek Gościecki and published in 1732. The comparison of the conscious account of Taranowski stay in Istanbul, with the narrative of Krzysztof Zbarawski embassy as perceived in Samuel Twardowski, Przeważna legacja, reveals shared motives and compasses arising from the conventions governing this type of diplomatic relation. Those include the description of the envoy's travel route, the precise dating of departure. And it's this fragments, and the date of return. Both accounts register river crossing, mountain ranges traversed, and significant towns passed along the way. And we places visited along the way. Military archaeological sites are mentioned, evidence of past battle. The imperial manager is situated on the Rhone of capital, imperial gardens and stables. Next fragments, description of the mosque, the authentically of Twardowski, here Guagnini and Twardowski, and here only Twardowski. and here Guagnin. Zgubiłem wątek. Wait. What emergence from the juxtaposition in the lapidary concision of Guagnin on the one hand and the poetic riches of Twardowski on the other, an effect achieved through the epic style here enriched with imagery shaped by the Baroque imagination. The authentically, it's an important epics present characters of person which they're portrayed. Guagnin, no presentation characters. On the short version, in the short version describe. I haven't much time. Guagnin, driving on Radziwiłł, provides an account of the slave market. I will next go to the next. Yes, here, it's here. His version is more extensive, specifying the ages of those sold, nothing their nightdress and bodily ornaments. It's here, I think. And next, the description of the journey to Istanbul and the depiction of the city constitute is both Twardowski and Gościecki, essential elements of their narratives. The poets appear not only as erudite figures well versed in history, but above all as participants in the expedition who present sites, landmarks, and customs on the basis of direct observation. Guagnin's account of travel is markedly restricted unless it concerns the movements of ancient arms. And some important an example, occasional literature, yet I will show here Santoni, much examples we haven't time. Yes, here. An example of occasional literature linked to a specific event can be found in Szymon Starowolski, Wyprawa i Wyjazd. In terms of literary convention, this work resembles the section of the Chronicle entitled Sposób ciągnienia wojska tureckiego, which formed part of Taranowski account. That is a diaristic segment within an ego document. In a sense, Starowolski description is considerably richer in detail, which may reflect changes in the manner or depiction that occurred over the course of several decades. He emphasizes particular color and form, revealing evidence of a shift in literary taste. And last part, conclusion. The difference between the portrayal of the Ottoman port in the Chronicle and in later literature stem from the divergent conceptual frameworks of those works. The Chronicle seeks to convey of a synthetic, comprehensive and universal presentation across time and space diachronic rather than confined to a single event of place. It necessarily forgoes an excess of detail within composition, often requiring a significant selection of material, subordinated to the overarching design of the work. By contrast, the diary, the epic, or the travel narrative typically focus on the single event. The sieve for the history of an individual of community, and are limited in temporal and spatial scope. They present reality synchronically with wróć. I to. Bo to jest dalej. O, tak. The image of the Ottoman port, delineated by Guagnini and Paszkowski in the Chronicle, both in the Polish and Lithuanian books, as well as in books 8 to 10, continued after 1621 and well into the 8th century, to shape to conscience of readers in the multi-ethnic Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth. The Chronicle, as evidently designed synthetics, was available at many courts, occasionally at noble estates, in school libraries, and less frequently in monastic collections. The frequency of this readership is attested by the condition of extant copies, many of which are heavily worn, with the final box showing the great signs of use and damage. In the surviving copies, however, one rarely accounts numerous hard-written marginal announcements. The Chronicle thus served as a source for learning not only the history of the Polish crown, but also the culture and mentality of the inhabitants of the territories under Ottoman and Tatar rule, together the Muscovy forming the broader Oriental world. Later works, such as Samuel Twardowski, przeważna alegacja, recounting the mission of Krzysztof Zbaraski and published in a smaller print, run to glorify a single individual and the lineage of Stanisław Chomentowski account of his embassy to Istanbul, present and so on, was offering a reliable first-hand version, did not attain the status of historical handbooks. By contrast, Wacław Potocki's Transakcja wojny chocimskiej, a synthetics based on testimonies of eyewitnesses such as Jakub Sobieski, Jan Ostroruk, Teofil Szembek, Prokop Zbigniewski, and Samuel Twardowski, and incorporated into his biographical epic Władysław IV, remained unpublished during the lifetime. Competing with the Guagnini-Paszkowski Chronicle were other accounts of the Chocim War, both in Polish and in Latin, by Jan Innocenty Petrycy, Eberhard Wassenberg, Paweł Piasecki and Stanisław Kobierzycki. The image... Koniec. Nie. Dziwił. O, nie, to już nie. The image of the Ottoman port was also reinforced by the abundant anti-Turkish literature of the 17th century. Through this corps was largely occasional in nature, responding to specific events. By contrast, Mikołaj Krzysztof Radziwiłł, peregrinacja enjoyed wide circulation and was a source utilized by Guagnini and Paszkowski. Its research were motivated primarily by religious concerns. The text provided a description of the Holy Land and offered readers a various experience of pilgrim. Radziwiłł himself refrained from visiting Istanbul for fear of arrest. His work, however, contains depictions of Palestine and Egypt, presenting territories conquered by the Ottoman port, and is largely distinguished between Arabs who had long inhabited those lands and the Turks who later subjugated them. Thank you for your attention.